Hopefully it doesn't cut off like it did last time. Anyway, all right, so the first thing we're talking about tonight is IMDb. You can use it for, obviously listing your movie, and it's also useful for filmmakers, IMDB Pro, and it is also useful for promotion of your movie by having it listed there, and we'll get into that. IMDb stands for Internet Movie Database. If you are making or have made a film, you want to add it to this site with the credits. This stuff comes from help.imdb.com. It's going to be letter E in the syllabus underneath IMDb marketing and promotion. If you worked on a project but weren't listed on the IMDb credits for the project, you can still add yourself to it. The first thing you want to do is you want to go to their search and check if you are already listed on their site. Make sure that you are listed somewhere. If you have other credits, that you find your name and you make sure that it's you. And if the film or the show or the TV episode or whatever it was that you worked on, make sure that it is listed on IMDb already, because that is important and that needs to be done by the creators, and then you add yourself to the project after that. But after you check for that, you need to be sure that the movie's listed. If the project isn't listed, then you need to do a new title submission form and then add yourself once it's listed. If it is listed, you just go to the page and scroll down to where it says edit page. And that will be on the desktop version of the site, not the app or the mobile site. So if you're doing it through your phone, you're not actually going to be able to see the edit page, and you have to do it through a computer or a laptop to be able to access that part of the page to edit it, to add yourself to it. The next thing you want to do is you want to find the department that you worked under cast and crew. Select whether you have no change, correct or delete, or add from the drop-down menu, and then hit continue. So obviously if you're not on there, you would hit add. If they spelled your name wrong, you would hit change or correct or delete. Then again, you're going to enter your name into the name box, and be sure that none of these suggestions are you. If none are you, create new by selecting this is a different person. And that's how you do it. It's showing you how to do it there. So if your name's Tom Cruise, obviously you're not that Tom Cruise. You want to make sure that none of the Tom Cruises on IMDb are you. If you're already listed on IMDb, obviously you just pick yourself again, and that'll add you to the credits of whatever movie or show you're trying to add yourself to.
If you have a photo, it really helps too.
Yeah, if you don't have photos, or if you have a bunch that don't have photos, then you have to look at each individual one and see the credits that they're listed under and make sure which one's you and which one's not. So definitely adding a picture of yourself whenever you get on IMDb will definitely help you find yourself later on. You'll also enter your character name if you're an actor, or you'll enter your occupation if you were the crew. Like what part of the crew did you work on and what was your job title? And then for the attribute box, that's for if you worked on a project but weren't credited in the project's credits, like the end credits. Then that would be something that you would do like in parentheses uncredited. Other than that, the attribute box, you don't really add to that. It's important because IMDb is very strict. If you get anything wrong, then they don't list you, and they reject your submission, and then you have to try to do it again, and it takes days and days to retry and retry. So you want to try to make sure you get all the information right from the get-go. After entering all the info, go to the bottom of the page and hit check these updates. If everything was entered correctly, hit submit these updates, and then approved contributions should appear on IMDb within 1 to 7 days. If they reject you, you do it again. Make sure that you follow whatever their rejection said, like you filled out the information wrong or something. They'll give you like a short information description of what you did wrong. or why they didn't add you. They need more proof or something like that. Especially if you're uncredited, it's kind of hard to be listed unless it's easily proven that you were in the actual project or you worked on it. So you have to like give them a bunch of information and they'll send you an email about that. But then it takes 1 to 7 business days for them to reject you. So then you have to restart after that to try to get listed again. And so that you can see, like, if you keep getting rejected, you keep entering the information wrong or accidentally adding stuff that shouldn't be there, or taking away stuff that should, then it can be weeks and weeks before you get listed. So you want to try to get everything right the first time. So next up comes again from help.imdb.com, but this is from letter F in the syllabus. If you have completed a film or a TV series, you can add it by using the new title form. Well, I don't know where. I guess I didn't add that. New title form would be like under the main page. It needs to have either been released in cinemas, shown on TV, or streamed on the web, released on video, released on the web, accepted and shown at festivals, or made by a now famous artist or person of public interest. So it has to be one of those things for them to be able to accept it right away if it's already completed. For a film or show that is in development, which means it's not yet in pre-production, only IMDB Pro members have access to submit a project that's in development. And that's basically just, the writing phase and the idea phase and all of that. And even then, if you're an IMDB Pro member, I've heard it's pretty hard to get your project listed. And it usually only happens for people that are well-known or have a bigger company or somebody that, like Tom Cruise, somebody like that, who's working on several projects at once. They might be able to list all of them and say they're in development before they actually get into pre-production. For a film or show that isn't released yet, but is currently in pre-production or further, IMDb adds these on a case-by-case basis because they don't want to add hundreds of titles that end up not being made or released to the public. So if it's in pre-production or if it's in production, the later stages of production that it's in, or if it's in post-production, they're more likely to add it. But if it's in a really early stage, like you just started pre-production and you're an unknown company or an unknown crew or cast, they require like a lot of different information, and then they still might not even add it. So some people say for independent filmmakers, it's usually just better to wait until you're pretty far in production to try to add it to IMDb, or even wait until you've completed it and like shown it to festivals or something like that, because it makes it a lot easier for them to prove that it's a real thing. And so that makes it easier for the people who check it when you submit to quickly add it to their listing. They say they generally reject unfinished projects unless they are in advanced stages of production and or submitted with sufficiently large number of credits and release information. If your project is rejected, you can resubmit at a later stage of production or once the project is complete. So you can also try to list it, and if it gets rejected, you can just try again. It's not like it's going to do anything, but it might just be feeling like a waste of time, is what most people say. Next up comes from medium.com. It's letter I in the syllabus. IMDb can also be used to help promote your film as well. IMDb is owned by Amazon. So if you have your film for rent or where they can purchase it digitally from Amazon, or if you're on Amazon Prime, IMDb will have a watch or a buy button on the film's page, like right here on the screen. IMDb TV, so it's like watch free here or watch there, or check it out on Amazon, those kinds of things. So if somebody's researching your film and they're looking up the credits, they go to IMDb, you listed your film on IMDb, then they have a chance to be able to just click a button to go watch it or go to the site that'll let them buy it or rent it. And so that's one way that it helps kind of promote your film. If somebody's already looking it up, it makes it easier for them to find out how to purchase it or watch it. Users can also rate movies, and each movie has a rating from 1 to 10. Higher rated movies can appear in top lists, like top rated movies of all time, or top rated movies of 2020, top rated horror movies of this and that. You know, the filtering can get it can be filtered more and more to make it more smaller lists, and that way you can see exactly what you're looking for. And if people are looking for some horror movies that they've never heard of, one of the best ways to do it is by just going and filtering through some movies on IMDb, because that'll bring up a huge list of different movies that have come out a certain year or for a certain genre. And then there's also like, you know, top 250, top 100 movies of all time. For independent filmmakers, probably very unlikely that you're going to get on there, but it is a list that people will go to just to watch or look through some of the best movies that have been made, best rated anyway. Users can also post their own lists and top favorites with comments. So they can post something like what their favorite 100 movies were from a certain time period or certain year. And they can add comments like, if it hasn't come out yet, they can add if they're interested in it coming out just from seeing the trailer, or they can say what they felt the movie was like and give their review. And then others can search for theirs and see what they think of the movie. And so if somebody's friend is on IMDb and they are also on IMDb, they can look through their list and see, oh, my friend liked that movie, maybe I should go watch it. And then you have a better chance of promoting your film that way too. Word of mouth. Many websites and online digital publications reference IMDb ratings as well for how the film or shows are being perceived by audiences. It's one of the main rating websites that everybody refers to whenever they're talking about like what people think of the movie. It's Rotten Tomatoes and IMDb, and then Metacritic usually. And so if your film is rated well on IMDb, it's going to just make it better every time it's talked about anywhere. Any publication that makes an article about it, if it's rated well, it's just going to look better on that publication and make the person who's reading it more inclined to check it out.
Now, there's also the fact that like it depends on the criteria for reviewing on each website. For example, like Rotten Tomatoes, you need to get a specific tip.
Talking about IMDb.
No, I know. I'm saying like examples. So it's good to look at IMDb and what would qualify for you to be able to rate it.
You just have to be a user.
Huh?
You just have to be a user.
Yeah, but does that count for all of these?
For IMDb, you just make an account and you can rate it.
Metacritic?
I don't know about Metacritic. We're just talking about IMDb.
Exactly. I'm just giving an example. So like when you see a review of a movie, if you want to know if it's good or bad, or if you want to know if it's easy for you to get people to review it in that specific website, looking up the criteria is good to know.
Well, the good thing about IMDb is it just has to be somebody who has an account, so anybody can rate it on there, and then everyone can see the average of the rating. So it's not like Rotten Tomatoes or something where it's separated. I don't believe it's like Rotten Tomatoes where it's separated, where it's like actual critics compared to just regular audience, and they only show the critic score unless you look further into it. I think the IMDb one is just people who have accounts on IMDb can vote what they felt like the movie was and rate it.
I know Google has one now too, where like when you look up reviews, Google will actually show you like, oh, here are some Google reviews. I thought that was like, huh, Google does movie reviews?
Yeah, I've seen that too, like of video games, movies, and stuff like that. They'll have like 84% by Google users. But only registered IMDb accounts from different IP addresses can vote and rate the movie. That's to keep it from somebody, voting and rating over and over again from the same address with using the same computer. So only different IP addresses can do it, and they can only do it once. I can't just keep well, they can change it, I believe, but it's not gonna, they can't make 2 reviews for the same movie, basically. So that's something to keep in mind. So next stuff comes from letter A. It's the video, How to Use IMDb to Promote Your Film. It's from Jay Horton, or his channel is called Jay Horton. When your film is listed, you want to ask your friends and family who have seen it to leave an honest review for it on IMDb. More activity will make it a higher chance to be recommended to others using the site, and especially if they did actually find it to be a good movie and they rate it well, then that's just better for you anyway. So you want to try to get as many people as you can to review it, but you also want to make sure that they've actually seen the film and they're not going to overly rate it well, or just rate it without actually watching it, or leave a dishonest review saying it's the best movie ever made when, you know, in all honesty, it probably is, most likely isn't. One thing to keep in mind is that movies like The Godfather only have a rating of 9.2. So if somebody's leaving a perfect score, it's not really being truthful or realistic to what your movie is. Plus, IMDb does look for fake reviews on both sides of the spectrum, overly good and overly bad, or review bombing reviews. So if it's like complete zero, everything sucked, this movie's garbage, and that's it, or it's, oh, this movie is, it seems like God himself came down and made it, then IMDb is probably going to discount those reviews anyway. So you don't want people overly reviewing it. Like, just have them leave an honest review, because if they leave too many good ones, they'll just be kicked off anyway, and then your friends and family can't review it again, and so that just makes it worse for you.
I've also heard that they have like, I don't know how real this is, but I've heard that they have like certain searches that the algorithm does to look for specific wording or specific sentences that are more prone to like be a bot or be a review bomber or whatever.
Where it has like the same three lines of wording.
Yeah.
Great movie, love to see it. Great special effects, and that's everything. And there's like 30 that say the same exact same thing.
Stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, so you want to make sure that they're actually reviewing it, they're actually have seen the film, and they're going to leave an honest review for it. Even if they thought it was a 6 or a 7, like that's still pretty good. If they thought it was a 5, yeah, that's decent. So you still want them to leave a review, because the more activity that gets on there, the more that IMDb's algorithm has a reason to showcase it to other people who might check it out and be like, what's this? And anyone who really loves movies, they might just want to watch something new, check out your film, and then rate it themselves. And then again, that just increases the activity, and it's a loop. So you want as much activity as you can get so that IMDb tries to show it to other people, but you don't want it to be fake, or and if people are just leaving like completely bad reviews, like zeros, and or I think it's 1 star and everything, and they're not explaining why, then IMDb has a reason to take it down as well. But once your film hits IMDb, you want to spread the word on your social media, your website, and anything else you have that you can spread the word on, because that's the easiest place for people to check it out, see who's in it. And like I said, they would have that watch button or where to find it. And so it makes it easier for them to locate your film as well. It can be something like, we just got listed. You can check out the actors, crew, and other credits and leave a review. If you know, on IMDb, here's the link to IMDb, and then drive traffic to it. Because the more traffic that goes to it, that's the more activity as well. So even if people are just clicking on the link to check it out, check out the picture of your, you know, the key art that you made, whatever they're doing. If the more activity that goes to that page, the more IMDb's algorithm is going to think that's something that people want to look at, and then it makes it more likely to showcase it again on their site somewhere for other people who have looked at movies. So now maybe your movie's a horror movie, and there's so many other indie horror movies out there, but because you drove enough traffic to yours, when somebody on IMDb is looking up a list of horror movies, yours is one of the top ones that starts popping up because it came out recently and a lot of people are going to that site. So you always want to spread it around and try to get people to go to these different websites and see it, because that'll help promote it. With Facebook groups and Reddit, you don't just want to spam post about your film and IMDb. You want to be sure to join them early and add value by contributing to them and their discussions, commenting on other people's stuff, making posts that aren't related to just your own thing, unless it's like a question about stuff and trying to learn. You really want to like join the communities and get a part of them. And then you'll have a better support when you actually go to share your work, because you've been in there and you've been talking to those people for a few months or a year, compared to just doing it whenever you're ready to market your film. So with those kinds of things, like the groups on Reddit and groups on Facebook and any other site that has groups like that, one of the ways to market is to join them early and talk about stuff with other people and just go through your film, maybe mentioning a few things here and there, but not really promoting yourself, but just getting involved with that group. And then by the time you're ready to promote yourself, they're all like, oh yeah, he's been commenting in here, he's been in our group for a while, and he's not just some random person using our group to try to promote himself. Because nobody likes that when they have those types of things. And then here is IMDB Pro. IMDB Pro is a subscription-based program for professionals and people in the film industry. IMDB is for movie enthusiasts and is free to use, where IMDB Pro has more information available on films' budgets, further details about casts and crew, and contact details to be able to connect with others in the industry. So it actually has contact information about where they work, who, what casting agents they use, who is that casting agent, what's their email, those kinds of stuff. That kind of information will be listed in IMDB Pro if the people choose to have their information listed. And usually they do, because it's all about networking when we're talking about filmmaking. So IMDB Pro is a great resource to find other people, and it's one of the great ways for independents to be able to communicate with other filmmakers and contact different agencies, sales agents and stuff like that whenever you're doing all your research to figure out how much a film is worth. IMDB Pro is one of the tools that you want to use, usually, because it has all these people that are in different industries, different sides of the filmmaking industry or distribution industry, to be able to connect with them, talk with them, and ask them questions. So
that makes sense. As you start to build and get like sub credits on IMDb, even if they're small, it starts to build your credibility. And people do talk. So every time you do a really good job, people like will recommend you again. And you don't even have to be perfect, as long as you like try really hard and like are really nice and polite. Most people really are nice, and they'll connect you to other jobs. It's happened to me lots of times.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so it shows that you worked in the industry, that you worked on projects, and that you are actively trying to future your career,
and not everything goes on IMDb too in the industry. So don't be shy away from a lot of like positions that aren't going to end up on IMDb too, because you get call sheets and experience. So when you can be like, hey, no, I've worked with all of these people before, when you try to get another job and you'll be like, yeah, no, I've got tons of experience and I've worked a long time, and you've got a few recommendations, it makes your life a lot easier too. So the IMDb helps, but it's not like that's the only way you get connections. There's like lots of like quiet jobs too, where they don't end up on IMDb all the time. And sometimes that's almost better, especially if you're starting out, because then you can make all the personal connections. It's like both are good, to be honest, but like if you start being on like just like you know what, there's no bad projects probably really in the grand scheme of things, because some people can get like, you'll get typecast if they see like IMDb in one section, versus like if you're just doing a bunch of other work where it's not necessarily on IMDb, then it's harder to be typecast up the front. So then you can think about, understand a whole bunch of areas with hands-on experience before you are like really typecast in an area. But at the end of the day, I wouldn't be concerned either and shoot down any opportunities, because the people are broken out of that as well. So you could be like an actor and then later you're a director, or you could be a lamp operator on IMDb with like 10 credits and then now you're doing script stuff. I mean, I've seen that too. So there's a whole mixture, but it's all good experience.
Yeah. Yeah, and IMDb Pro is just a place where people can list themselves and they can have their contact information so that anyone who's looking for that kind of, like, if I were to look for a sales agent, I could look up sales agent through IMDb Pro, find some and contact them and see if they're wanting to work with me and stuff like that. So that I don't just have to go through the avenues of like Facebook groups and things like that, because they're a little less easy to locate people and less professional. The way I look at IMDb Pro is kind of like a LinkedIn for filmmakers. It's a good place to have your information so others can find you and connect, and it's a good place to look up other people and like filter out what you're looking for. If you're looking for actors, it's a good place to find some. If you're looking for sales agents, distributors, if you're looking for producers and any crew members, it's also a good place to search for that. It's a great place to collect information on ratings and also analytics of who's rating what. So you can also get further information on who's rating it, how old they were. The IMDb, the regular free to use IMDb users, when they're rating all these movies, you want to look up the ones that are like yours in the same genre, what they sold for, what they were rated, how they were perceived. And that's why IMDb Pro is a great tool to use, because you have all these analytics of who rated it, what were they rating it, overall, what was the rating, and then it starts breaking it down into age groups and ethnicities and genders if the user has listed that information on their profile. It's also good to find film budgets and box office for help with projections of your own, so you can see better information on that. Some of that information is not available to IMDb regular users, so IMDb Pro, you can actually see some of the budgets that were used on different movies and different films. And it's better to see industry professionals and companies for pitching and checking its legitimacy. Instead of just going based off of a random one, you can actually see who's worked with them before and start contacting them to figure out if it's a good company or not. IMDb Pro also has a discover function that lets you filter and search for cast and crew to reach out to the right people to try to connect and create with them. And I would say the videos in the syllabus, letters C and D, which are how to get your film listed on IMDb and IMDb Pro tutorial for cast and crew. Those are a good place that give a good walkthrough on adding your project to IMDb. So if you're creating one, I recommend checking those out as well.
Yeah,
Because it just makes it easier whenever you have a project, you can start doing it. And like I said, I don't know, I would wait to add it as an independent filmmaker. I would wait to add your film to, or your film or your show or whatever it is, web series, to IMDb. I'd wait until it's already complete or until it's in a further stage of production, because it's just a lot easier. You have a lot more information, and IMDb will trust that it's actually going to come out, or that it already has, so they can prove that it's already a real thing. Does anyone have anything to add or any questions on IMDb or IMDb Pro?
Yeah. So the unique thing about IMDb is that it's actually putting your film, your work, in the same realm with big Hollywood. So like your film, it's like once you list it on there, it's being listed next to legit Hollywood big budget movies. So that's a cool thing and a unique thing to think about. However, people like to use this as like the whole, it's on IMDb, so it's
Legit.
real, as this like a badge of honor or something like that. Oh, it's on IMDb. I've had people like come back, oh, do you have an IMDb? And I'm like, so what if I do, or what if I don't? That it doesn't determine, it shouldn't be used to determine the legitimacy of your film. It should just be more or less be used for a tool for documentation. Say, hey, like, if you want some info or facts on the film, here you go. Like a source for people to be able to find your film. People use IMDb to, oh, this is my film on IMDb. Some big Hollywood guy is going to see it, and I'm going to make millions. It's just it should just be used as, just a documentary tool and just a source for people to go to. Like we have social media, Facebook, every time I link up with somebody, oh, what's your Instagram? What's your Facebook? What's your this? What's your that? We have those sites for filmmakers. We have IMDb, for your film. Like, oh, where's your film listed at? So like, it shouldn't be a source for.
Yeah, and I wanted to add to that about the millions thing. It's just like, well, you can make good money just like you can make good money in a lot of fields if your reputation's good and you work a lot. But it's not what people think where it's like this, you work on a big movie and you just hit it. It's usually like most of the positions are like how you would be. You go to school, you do your work, you build up, and now you're like making good money and you're able to save and you're able to invest properly. It's not like what people necessarily think when they first think about, films and filmmaking, where they're just like, oh, you make one movie. It's like, no, people work on like 50 movies, and then you're starting to make a bunch of money because you're working on a bunch of projects because your reputation is selling you. Just like,
like I said,
as any contract worker. From my personal experience, and I've been in the industry for 5 years, it's kind of like that, where it's like, yeah. Like you could do well, like if you work and you have experience in like as a lawyer or something. It's kind of like that where you build your reputation and things, but it's not a one-off like hit. So as you build your IMDb and you're getting paid for projects, it leads you to more projects. And yeah.
Well, I mean, IMDb doesn't necessarily mean you were paid either. Like, there's YouTube movies on there. There's different web series and stuff like that where it's like low budget independent stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot of smaller stuff on IMDb too.
Yeah, that's true. Like, sometimes.
I was just gonna say on Brian's argument, I understand that. Yeah, I feel like a lot of people think, oh, it's not an IMDb, then it's not legit, or it's not, official or whatever, even though there's quite a bit of crap on there too. But I can also understand from a layman's perspective, like someone who doesn't understand a lot about film, or someone who likes film but doesn't know all the technicalities, to be like, oh, it's not an IMDb, it's not anywhere, so yeah, it's kind of hard to find it or see how legit it is or whatever. But yeah, someone in the industry, we've talked about this before, there are certain things that they qualify like, oh, it's not this, then it's not legit. And that can be frustrating, I would imagine.
Yeah. It's again reputation based. You're just trying to always be nice and do a good job, and oftentimes you're going to be paid for like lots of like the like other types of work, and then sometimes you'll get paid for IMDb work, and sometimes that'll be like part of your, like you might be doing it for less money or free to build your accolades or public accolades a little bit, or like your resume and stuff if you're trying to break into a certain area. Certain projects you could be paid and be on IMDb. That happens a lot too. So it really is, they both happen. And I would say,
and I think if you can, right? If you can, it's really good to do regardless. Like, yeah, the reputation thing is frustrating, but I feel like even if it is just for a capsule, even if it is just to refer people to it, whether you're like a film producer or director, or you're just an actor, well, not just, or you're an actor, I feel like it can still be pretty helpful to refer to my IMDb.
Yeah, and like,
yeah, because then like if you're just the creative, then they can see what else you worked on. If they like the way you directed a movie, they can see, have you directed anything else? What else has this person acted in? What else has this person worked on? Oh, the cinematography was lovely in this. What else has this person done their cinematography on? you know, depending on what they're looking for, they can look up the person and see what else they've worked on. And that is another good reason to have you as a creator or a filmmaker on it. But as the person who's making the film, you definitely want to try to list it if you can, because it's just easier to point people to it. And if anyone wants to find the credits, they can easily look that up. If you're trying to get a distributor or something, it's easier for them to just see who's in it. Let me check the IMDb page and look and see if I want to distribute this or not. So it's a lot easier for that kind of stuff. If you're getting into like the distribution side, the marketing side, it makes it a little easier to promote. And like Brian said, it does tend to like make people think it's a little bit more legit just because it's on IMDb. And that's because you're listed in the same realm with these other Hollywood movies, the big budget movies and stuff like that. And the actors that people know really well off the top of their head, household names.
Yeah, so I would still say it's worth it if you can. I feel like just for
most things can get listed. You just have to have proof that it exists.
Yeah, I've never had any issue with uploading any of my stuff to IMDb. And then it's kind of weird because like
Yeah.
I have my name on stuff that I don't even remember doing. Like, oh my God, like when was that? And then it's something you kind of have to pay attention to as well, because like something might pop up and like if you weren't like they might credit you for something you didn't do, or somebody might credit you for a movie that you got the name wrong or something, or the wrong one. So like let's take for instance like there's 3 of me on IMDb, and I know which films I did, but there's another meaning like that they get me mixed up with like somebody from NBC all the time, like NBC New York, and I was like, no, I don't work for those guys. Yeah, it's weird.
is it like your name?
Yeah, like could you know what happens if somebody else has your name, they put like a number 2 or number 3 behind it to say, hey, there's like 3 of them.
Yeah.
And it's just, but like I said, it's really good for documentation. It really is. But it shouldn't be a thing where it's like, oh, he doesn't, because like Sarah said, there's really great films out there that aren't on IMDb. And it's just a question of whether or not this person just took the time to do it. It's not, something that's, oh, he made it to IMDb. You know what I'm saying?
Right,
it's not like
it's not like Netflix or something where it's like, oh wow, you made it on Netflix. It's just like you just list it on there. So
It's as elite as people think. It's actually quite easy.
Once you're on IMDb and you're in some really cool, like smaller projects, that's a really big step, whether it's an independent web series, whatever. It's a huge step, and it's going to lead you towards bigger projects and potentially being on bigger things like Netflix too. I mean, you could get offered a big Netflix gig off the top, or you could get offered smaller gigs. I think that they're all equally beneficial experiences. As long as like you're not in something like pornography or something that might be like damaging, you're probably fine. I mean, even if it's like a C-class movie, it's still like being like, most of the time it's like, and it's experience. You might not want to be caught in like every bad movie, but like there's many big actors that have done bad movies and they still have a career. So I mean, as long as you are humble and you do
said Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, exactly. But he's also done some really good ones, right? Because you take risks.
It's been a while, but yeah.
Sometimes they don't. So you can try to be humble and do your best. Which is hard because egos can fly.
Right.
I think what Brian's trying to say with IMDb is just that a lot of people discredit certain creators because they're not on IMDb, or that particular project isn't on IMDb, when they don't really know how easy it actually is to be on IMDb. And sometimes it's just a matter of, oh, I haven't gotten around to putting it up there yet.
Now, adding yourself to IMDb can be a pain, but it's not like it's, I don't know. It's not as hard as like that. Like it's not like it's an elite club that only certain people can enter. It's just that you have to be very particular and make sure you have all the information filled out right. It's like filling out a form for any government body. It's like if you had to fill out a form for the government, they want to make sure it's all very particular. You have all your I's and everything spelled exactly right, and you have all the information correct before sending it in, because if you send it in wrong, they're going to reject it and send it back, and you're going to have to redo it all. So it can be a pain if you mess up anywhere, which is why you just want to be sure to double, triple, quadruple check your information before you try to submit a new project. And if you're not listed on there, like I said, just make sure that you look up all the names that are like yours, like Brian Booker. Like if he didn't have his name on there, but there's 2 other Brian Bookers, just make sure those 2 aren't you, even though you don't believe they aren't. Even though you believe that they aren't you already, you still want to double check and make sure, because maybe somebody added you to some credit that you worked on years ago and you didn't realize. And so you're already on IMDb as a individual. But if you're not, then you can add yourself, and you just want to make sure that you do it right. And like he said, also, you want to make sure that whatever you're working on, you kind of check once they get on IMDb, you might want to check that they have spelled your name right, that they've used the right person, because they could use the other Brian Booker and then he wouldn't get the credit for it. So if someone's
That's
looking
why
up
the
his
picture
credit,
is very important too.
That's
Make
true.
sure that you have a picture, because chances are there will be people with the same name as you. So it's good
Well,
to have an identifier.
in order to get the picture, you have to pay for the pro. You don't get the picture if you have a normal subscription.
okay,
Really?
there you go.
Yeah.
That's so stupid.
No, it
Yeah.
kind of makes sense, but there you go. So that's another reason why you might want to get IMDb Pro at some point, but it is a subscription, so it is annoying to hold on to for a
And
long
that's
time, just
also
like any
another
other
reason.
subscription.
And that's also another reason probably why not everyone has all their projects on IMDb, because it's like, oh, I
Now
don't
you
want
gotta
to
pay
hassle to set up.
No, IMDb you can submit to without being a pro member.
No, but that's what I'm saying. I'm saying that can also be a reason, because people don't want to have to go through, oh, they might do the wrong person because I don't have a picture, and it's going to take a while to set up and all this stuff. So that might be a deterrent as well. Like,
Well, that definitely deters me a lot from utilizing it from the way I should and the way I could. But another site that's very similar to that, that's actually really beneficial, is Film Freeway. It's kind of like the same setup and documentation of your film. And all this, you create profiles for your individual movie, similar to IMDb. All that information is going in there. But it creates a profile for each movie you make or script. And then from there, it allows you to just simply submit to whatever festival they got going on. Easy access, stuff like that. I actually like this a lot better than IMDb, just because of that aspect alone.
Yeah, we were talking about this site when we were talking about festivals, because it has a lot of the festivals on there. I didn't know you could post your movie on it already and kind of make a profile. That's cool.
Yep, you can do screenplays and short films and whatever feature films you want. You could create a project, and then all that stuff will upload on your profile. Very similar to IMDb. Very
Okay,
similar
nice.
to IMDb. I'm not necessarily sure, but the thing was IMDb, they have,
more
stuff for
well-known.
actors and everybody. I'm not necessarily sure if this is like, constricted to like filmmakers or not, but I do know that this one is like, for me, like, I have like a couple scripts on there, and then I have Kill Mary on there. So whenever a festival pops up, all I have to do is just submit it. I don't have to go through the process of
But
like,
is this one more niche? Because, well, it could just be I've never heard of it.
No, Film Freeway is the one that has like all of the.
Oh, I have heard of it. Never mind.
Yeah, it's like the festival. I only knew it for the festival search, like searching festivals and submitting easily to a bunch of different festivals. I didn't know
Yeah.
it for the profile.
yeah, you can create your own profile, put a picture on there, put your little bio and all that stuff on there, and then you can upload whatever. Just like IMDb, it'll tell you what your accreditations are and stuff like that, and you can go look it up, and you can put your trailers on there and all that stuff.
Nice.
Nice, yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, moving on from that, we're going to talk about a film website, or making a website for your film, for you as a filmmaker, or for you if you have a production company. This stuff comes from Crisco Art. It's letter A in the syllabus. The video is called How to Make Your Filmmaker Website and Film Portfolio, Crisco Art. Having a website for your film or for you as a filmmaker or your production company, if you own one, can greatly help with people taking you more seriously and having a place to put all of your media related to your film, as well as a place for people to buy any merch that you might sell or DVDs and Blu-rays of your movie. He says he's not a professional graphics designer or a web designer, but sees a lot of parallels in how you create something visually pleasing in a website, like you do when thinking of shots, color palettes, and lighting with film. There are website builders which help you create a website and design the page with preset and customizable layouts, fonts, sizes, color palettes, icons, buttons, and more. Some of these websites are Wix.com, Web.com. I'm sure you guys have heard of this one. GoDaddy.com, WordPress.com, Squarespace, the one that every YouTuber promotes in existence. I think it was called Zyro, but it could be Zero. Pretty sure it's Zyro though. And there's more. Websites have different associated costs to them. There's the domain name, which is the actual name of the website. You have to it costs to reserve it and use it on a yearly basis. So if you wanted to get the domain name of Zyro.com, you can't, because whoever owns this domain already owns it. But if you wanted to make another company website and the name's not taken, you can take it and kind of just reserve it for yourself so that you can use it for your site and nobody else can use it. Unless you don't pay to renew it, then it can be taken by anybody who wants it. And you can see that happen with a lot of popular websites when they don't pay or they shut down. All of a sudden, if you go to that website, that domain name, then it's like some random, basically a scammy website, because some scammers just kind of bought it to make it look like something and try to sell stuff.
A good example is like the old Disney Channel websites or the Nickelodeon websites that they would do for their TV shows, like the Slap for Victorious or iCarly.com, that kind of thing. Unless you do the Wayback Machine, which is that website that like shows you how it used to be. A lot of them, when you put it in now, even the Barbie websites, now they're either like you go on there and it's just images because they kept the domain, or they're completely different websites and it's blogs or something really weird.
Yeah, and that's because there was a lot of traffic that was going to that domain name. So some kind of, they do like bot searches and whatever else to find an algorithm to see what website domains are available and how much traffic went to them before. And so if you stop paying for it and you had a lot of traffic going to your website, chances are it's going to be picked up by some person who's trying to do some kind of scam or something like that to post random information on it.
So that's why like a lot of those websites are just like random pages. It's so that they can keep like,
because they know traffic's going to go to those websites, because that used to be a real website that drew people in. And so they're more likely to be able to scam somebody going into it. Really, the only information we need to know if we're trying to build a website there is that it costs money to reserve a domain name and hold on to it for a certain amount of yearly basis, annual basis, or you can get like a biannual or more. I'm pretty sure you can reserve it depending on which website you're using to get it from. They have different lengths that you can buy to keep it in reserved for you. Some sites will also reserve any domains that could be close to theirs and have it just kind of relink to their actual website. So let's say this is pronounced Zyro. Somebody might spell it in Ziro, and maybe Zyro knows that, so they already bought that domain name. And so if I type in Ziro, it's just going to relink me to this actual website. That's not always the case, but bigger companies will do that a lot, and they'll have a bunch of different domain names that'll link back to their actual website. So it's just something to keep in mind. If you have a common name or something that might get misinterpreted or misspelled, something to keep in mind, because you can just buy that domain and have it linked to your actual site without having to host a whole new site. So yeah, domain name is one of the costs of a website. The other cost of a website is hosting. Hosting is keeping the site up and with enough info and enough data for traffic to come and go without making the website crash. The cheaper you go with hosting, the less data you'll have, and the less it'll be able to handle a large amount of people coming in and a bunch of different like videos and whatever else on your actual site. It'll take longer to load and it'll be easier to crash. Another thing that comes in is SSL certificates, which makes the site secure. That's this little lock you see whenever you do it. It's like the HTTL or whatever it's called before the www starts on a website. If you ever look at that, that's the SSL certificate, which just means that it is a secure website. Some hostings will give that for free. Sometimes those cost, but they're usually not too expensive. And then there's the website builder software or hiring a developer to create it. Using a website builder is the cheapest way to build a website though. And a lot of these like Wix, web.com, GoDaddy, WordPress, Squarespace, Xero or Zero, and InMotion Hosting, they all have their own, or they connect back to WordPress to allow you to build it either free or with some kind of subscription service. Some builders are free, but they have they're more limited. So it's usually the best course is to pay for it, but you can do it for free to build the website, but you still have to pay for hosting and the domain name. I use InMotion Hosting for my site. They use WordPress to build and have different tiers, as you can see on the screen, for hosting costs. And like I said, the smaller you go, the more it's going to be, the less dedicated it is to your site. But if you're just having a site that's not going to have too much traffic, usually a filmmaker's website, it's probably not going to have too much traffic. So unless you're getting really popular, you can go with one of the cheaper options most of the time. The bigger ones, those are more for like the websites that sell things and have a lot of people coming and going from it, looking up information. Something like YouTube would obviously have its own thing entirely, and would have its own dedicated site. They probably have their own dedicated builder and other things like that because they're so massive. But other websites that do selling and things like that, they need to have a dedicated hosting and more data to be able to use because there's a lot more information, a lot more people accessing the site and coming and going. Something like a blog or like a filmmaker website or a film website, something that's not going to be visited all the time, can be done for a lot cheaper, and one of the cheaper options are used most of the time.
You can always upgrade too. So if you're like wondering which plan to get, just get like one to get started. And then when you get too much like traffic, just upgrade because it'll cover the cost at that point.
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, there's also some free options for building and hosting your site, but they come with the limitations. If there's free hosting, the limitations are usually that the advertisements are going to be displayed on your site and you don't get any money from it. It's just going to whoever's hosting it. Free non-custom domains, such as something like www.mywebsite.wix.com. And so if you ever see like that, like an extension of an already made site like Wix, but there's like a name before it, it's probably because it's a free website that they're using, so they don't have to buy their own domain. And that can be done for a filmmaker's website, but it's just going to make it a little less professional, a little less legit, just a little bit. But it can be done for free. But there'll also be limited features such as low storage and bandwidth allowances, no e-commerce features. So if you are trying to sell DVDs and Blu-rays, or you're trying to sell some kind of t-shirts and whatever else for your most recent film or your production company logo, you'd have to actually pay for hosting to be able to access those kinds of features. However, they are great to use to test out the website builder, like the free ones, see how you like it, if it's the right fit for you, and it'll allow you to test your skills without putting any finances in it, having any financial pressure to create this thing. So then you can just see how easy or how difficult it is for you, how you like it. There's different builders for a reason. Some are easier for some people, and some people catch on to ones quicker than others and other things like that. Other ones are made for being super simple, but have less customization. And so it depends on what you're looking for, but it's a great way to just kind of check it out for free, see what you think of it, and then decide if you want to go with it or not, and then start paying for it. We're going to have an exercise to make a film or a filmmaker website. So I recommend using the free services to make one for the exercise, unless you guys plan on using it and keeping it forever. But for just the exercise, I recommend just going to one of the sites that has free hosting, using their domain, and doing the free builder. And that way you can do it pretty much completely for free. Wix
So
and GoDaddy have free options. Squarespace and some of the other ones have free trials, like a 14-day free trial. So just make sure to look that up before we do it. And we'll get more into that when we talk about the actual exercise. Yeah, Sarah, you can use yours. She said she already has a website. But yeah, Wix and GoDaddy already have free options. So those are two that you might want to use for the exercise, or if you're just trying to actually make a website for yourself or your company, and just see what it's like. With website builders, many of them will include color palette templates that you can use, which will automatically change the color of certain parts of your site. So something like this, where you just click on a different color palette and it starts to show you like the different ways you can, like different parts of the site that are going to be affected by it. Just like with films and graphic design, you don't want to make a website look like a cluttered mess. Too many colors will begin looking ugly and unprofessional. It'll look something like that. That's hideous. So usually the case of a website, any website.
It's also very distracting, so you can't really pay attention to anything, because with a lot of colors, way too many things are capturing your eye. You never know where to look, and it's just way too distracting and just an eyesore, to be honest.
Yeah, and you typically want a website to look clean and uniform. So sticking to a color palette is important, and using rules that we learned for production design apply to websites as well. Like the 60-30-10 rule that we learned about, where it's 60% being your main color or colors, 30% being your secondary color or colors, and 10% being your accent color or colors. You can see underneath the bar that it shows they use a dark purple and a little bit lighter purple, both purple, so that they kind of come from the same color hue for their background, which would be the 60% on a website. It's the background. Right now, we're looking at Reddit. I have it in dark mode, so black is the background. Blue is the 30%, and then there's a little bit of white going on, which would be the 10%. But then you see on here, like for this example in the picture, they use 30% of their secondary color would be the text, and they do white and light brown. And then 10% is the accent colors, which is like the buttons, kind of like on Reddit right here, the arrow buttons, that's the accent colors, or the ones that say comment, or the call to action buttons is what they're called when they're trying to get people to subscribe or comment or contact us or join. Those are the call to action. You're calling them to join, you're calling them to comment. So it's a call to action button. But yeah, those are the 10%. So a lot of rules we learned in production design apply to website design as well, with colors and text and things like that. Even with the same colors, there are many different looks that you can create. So if you take one color palette and you just change which part of the website is going to be that color, it's going to make the whole website look a lot different. As you can see in this example, where they're using like the purple, the pink, the black, and the tan and white, but they're putting them in different areas. So now it looks a lot different with each one. The main ones that look different are these three. These two look a bit the same, but you can still tell there's a difference there because of the text. So just keep that in mind. It's a lot to, once you first getting into it, it's a lot to go over because there's a lot of different things you don't really think about. A lot of different parts of the site that are going to have different colors and everything. But the simpler you keep it, the better and the more professional it's going to look. And also, it doesn't mean that you're tied down just because you're using a color palette that is common, because there's so much customization you can do to make it look completely different. Even in these 4 pictures, you see it. So just imagine all the other color palettes out there and how much differences you can do with every other part of the site. Again, simpler is usually better. So on the left, you see it's like a lot of different stuff going on. It's harder to pay attention to anything. And this is for like a site that's selling things. And then on the right, it's a lot simpler because there's only a few things. And then you go down and you see the next like box of things to click. With this, there's just so much information. The title's huge, and then the thing's there, and then the buy button's there, and there's pictures, and there's a bar on the right. So there's just so much information overload that it's harder to pay attention to what part of the site you're going to look at, what part of the site you're going to, compared to the one on the right. That's a lot cleaner, a lot simpler, where you can see the information and then scroll past it or click the next link to go to the next page.
Yeah, I find that if you want a really good website, most really awesome companies either do like a design kind of like where it's like it's supposed to like look busy, but it's still simplified and everything's kind of placed where it is. These are the 2 styles that I've seen that are really nice. And then so it looks kind of like busy because, but it's not. Like it's a mixture between simplified and like artistic. And then you've got very simplistic, kind of more like Apple style, straight to the point in both of them. I've seen like lots of different artists or companies use, and they look really good. So if you're doing like a website search for whatever you're doing or building, whether it's a service related, artistic related, or business, you just look up other ones similar to you or like get ideas. You can do that.
Yeah, definitely. And if you look up like filmmakers' websites, other people's websites that are in your locally, or just the more professional names that you can think of for production companies, you can start seeing like how they do their sites and how they're similar and how they're different, and then see like the commonalities and the differences within all of them. You also want to, with colors, you want to use color theory with the color harmonies to make a color palette, as some colors don't work well together. And for web design, that can mean they also don't contrast well, meaning that you can't read anything, or it's just harder to read because it's a lot blurrier. Let me see if I can open this. Well, it's probably going to be blurry because the picture's small, but they're using yellow on top of green, and that's just harder to see. It doesn't contrast enough, so it's a lot harder to read the information that's on the page. So you want to be aware of like the color theory, the color wheel, and use contrasting colors to make sure that it is easily legible, so that you can, whoever's reading that information can read it quickly and easily, and they don't have to like look at it and try to decipher what that is, or look at it really close because the colors are too close and it's blending together. Someone like Priscilla would have a really hard time with a site that does that, because she can't see that well, so she have to, and like the colors are too close. But even people who don't have a vision disability, they would still have trouble reading this thing, especially this like green links. There's green links on top of green, making it impossible to see. So something like that would be really unprofessional looking, and it just looks ugly.
Man, that hurts my eyes just to look at.
What is green? Oh, you're talking about the red on that?
Yeah, it actually hurts because it shines for some reason.
Well, Alexa.
But I was gonna say that another thing is, it's not even, well, yeah, accessibility is amazing, and if you can do it, please. But there's also the factor of like, it doesn't serve you, like you having one, like two similar colors, it doesn't make them pop, it doesn't look visually stimulating, it doesn't look dynamic. It honestly looks cheap and kind of lazy. So yeah, that's another thing to consider. It's not like, oh, it's gonna look cool with like these types of contrast or whatever. Not every contrast goes together. Not every contrast works. Not every like, oh, super bright this or super dark that.
Right, and that's why you always want to pay attention to that color wheel and the color theories, because that is generally like it works. And there's a reason why it's been studied, and it's a theory that people go by so much in film, art, and web design and anything graphics related, is because people do think it looks good together. And it doesn't have this effect of being hard to read, hard to see, and just looking kind of cheap and ugly. Another thing you want to think about is typography and font. For one thing, you want to pick fonts that match your style as a filmmaker, or match the style of film if you're just making a website dedicated to one film, or your production company. Fonts can be thinner, thicker, and look more friendly, look more childlike, look more narrow and spiky and whatever else. There's so many different kinds of fonts out there that can match a certain style. So you want to try to pick one that kind of matches as closely to your thing as possible. Also, you want to choose them for legibility and matching the web page and color palette. Again, something like this, when it is its right size, it's kind of hard to read because they have it all in bold and it's all pretty close together. And so the type font that they're using, it's just not really working with this page. And that could be because of the color, or that could just be because of whatever type font they're using. It's not really that web page friendly, especially depending on what they're looking at it on. If it's a phone or if it's a desktop computer, it's going to be illustrated a little bit differently. The layout's going to be a bit different. But yeah, if you're using a font that's harder to read, it's just going to look unprofessional, and it's going to make the people not really want to read it because it's not easy to read. So why am I going to waste my time trying to read this thing for this film that I've never heard of? So you definitely want to consider those things and keep that in mind. And just like in graphic design for filmmaking, you also want to make sure that you don't use too many fonts on your website. Using too many fonts makes them all fight for attention from each other. It makes it look unprofessional, and it makes it look cluttered. There's another thing that makes it look cluttered. So that's the colors, that's the type of font you're using, and not using too many fonts. Basically, keep it simple across the board. It's already difficult enough to make it look good. Don't add extra to it by adding too many fonts, trying to be too stylistic. Simple is usually better. Another thing to consider is those call to action buttons and links. You want to make sure that they stand out, that they draw attention, and they contrast well against the background. That's why it is the darker blue on top of the white and then light blue thing, instead of it being white, because then it kind of blends into the background with the white border that's surrounding this blue strip. So you want to make sure that it stands out the most, and that it's easy to see, it's legible, and it's clear what this button does. Click here to go to this thing, contact us here, check out the film, watch this, buy. All of those little small words you'll see on the website, that's going to be in these call to action buttons across the web page. Comment, contact us, buy here, rent here, go to this page, whatever it is. You'll want those to be clear. You want those to stand out the most, because you want people to do those things. With website builders, you can start with a blank canvas, but many allow you to start from a template that already looks organized and professional, has a professional layout, where you just fill in the spots or change them to your photos and media, and then can decide how much customizing to do from there. There's even a lot that do templates based on what kind of business or service or whatever kind of website you're making. So if you're making it more for filmmakers, there should be some kind of film and video type website templates that you can use. Most of the builders that are there have that kind of thing already in their software and their website, whatever it is, because they know who comes to make websites, and artists and creatives and that type of stuff do. So they have different ones for different types of creatives and different type of people, like filmmakers. You also want to understand when you're doing a layout, if you're creating it yourself, especially, you want to make sure that you understand the layout of the website is going to look different on a laptop or desktop computer and a tablet, because they're a little bit bigger, but not as big as a desktop screen, and then a phone. All three of those things are going to have a different layout to some extent. So you can see it on here where it shows like the red thing, the little blue things, the orange button, and the little yellow things. We'll say that's like titles or bios or article links. But then on the phone, it all gets kind of crushed together. So you only see a smaller part of that orange bar. You see only one of the blues, and you see the red, which is probably the logo. And then you see the four things without the actual script written underneath, or the text written underneath. So if you're creating your own from scratch, just be aware that you should also pay attention to how it's going to look on each device. If you're doing it through a pre-made template, some of them will be pre-built to already be good on either device or all devices, and some won't. So you just want to check when you think you're done with your site, check it on the computer, check it on your phone, and if you have a tablet, check it on that, because you'll see how the layout looks on each and see if it still looks good, or if the lettering might be too big, or the things might be too crunched, or something's off on the side of the screen on the phone where you can't even access it because it's not made right for the phone. So you have to go back and edit it around until you figure it out. You want it to look good on whatever device people are using to access your site. Websites can also differ on navigation. You can have a very vertical one-page site, or where most of your information is found on basically one page, the first page that people go to. Or you can have a bunch of different links to other pages for different parts of your site or different pieces of information. So you can have an about us page and a this page and a contact us page, or you can put it all on one page and they scroll down and it goes about us, and then they scroll down and it's contact us, and you scroll down and you see the social medias and whatever else. That's up to you how you want to do it. I don't know. I think for me personally, I like having things smaller, not having a huge page to scroll through, especially on the phone, because it just takes forever to get from top to bottom. So it's a lot easier.
I was gonna say that's a thing you have to consider a lot, because more often than not, people are gonna be on their phone more.
Yeah.
So you have to make sure that it's compatible for both and it looks good on both.
Yeah, I think simplifying everything that you do is probably like the smartest like business plan. I mean, it usually works quite well. You see, like, even on like big sites, they have like all the information on like separate pages, but like you want your main page to be like very simplified, mainstream, a quick abbreviation of everything. And then if you start having like extra details, like if you look at, say, Walmart or something, you'll see, or other stores, or Apple, they have like the main page and then you got all the side pages with tons of like all the details of what they sell for each section. So that works. Same thing for like artists, like say a painter, you'll have like a main page saying what they do, and then you'll have like a link to all their work.
Yeah. So yeah, either way, I think it works, but I do believe that way is better. That you just explained was the having a main page that kind of briefly says like, click here to contact us, somewhere on there, but not having it be its own thing, like having your own page for contact us, but also mentioning it in the main page so you can click on it and go to the part of the site that is contact us. Is usually what the best thing is, I think. But it depends on how much time you have, and it depends on what you want to do, because I have seen other people who have put all their stuff, depending on how much information you have as well. You might have only worked on one project, and so you just want to put that on one page to show that you are starting your career, or that you are interested in doing stuff, and then say like what kind of equipment you have, or like what you're working on now. Maybe some of the scripts that you've written, have them copyrighted and then posted on your website somewhere. Those kinds of things you could do if you're just doing it for yourself as a filmmaker. If you're doing it for your film, again, there might not be too much information there, depending on how much media represented your film or how much interviews and stuff like that you had. And so you can decide what you want to do with it, whether you want to do a big one page or whether you want to do a bunch of pages where they're all separated, or a mixture of both. It sometimes will depend on what you want and what limits you have, because some plans or some of the free builders especially only allow a limited number of pages, and others allow unlimited. So if you have like a paid subscription, one of the subscription ones, they have a limit, but it's a lot higher than like the free ones. Some of the free ones you can do like 2 pages, I think, or 4 pages max. Whereas the paid ones you can do like 20 or 40 or unlimited. So it really depends on how much you have available as well. If you're making a free one, you're obviously going to be limited to whatever they give you. But if you're doing one that's paid, you just want to choose based on how much information you think needs to go in this site. And because it's a film site, because it's a production site, production company site, or because it's a filmmaker site, you normally aren't going to need like hundreds of pages. You usually just need, I would say, like 20 or less. And it just, I guess it really depends. Once you start getting bigger and bigger, of course, you're going to add more. But that's something, like Sarah said earlier, that's something you can upgrade to if you need it. For a tutorial on how to build the site or customize it, I definitely recommend Crisco Art's video, because he shows a lot of the capabilities you can use when he's using his website builder. So again, that's letter A in the syllabus, Crisco Art. He goes into depth into explaining some of the stuff, and it makes it easy to follow along with. So if you've never built a website, you have no idea what it is or how to do it, watching that video I recommend. You also want to be sure on your website, especially because you're doing it for your film, or you as a filmmaker or your production company, you want to be sure you have links to your social media and other websites, if you have any, for you or your film, or on your web pages. It can also be your contact information, phone number, business phone number if you have one, business email. And then, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Here's our this, here's our that. That way, everybody who goes to your site can immediately go to all the social medias that you're using and follow along with you if they choose. So be sure to put that on each page. It's usually going to be on the bottom. You'll see that on every page. If I scroll down here, never mind. I thought if I scroll down there, I guess it's because I'm on a certain Reddit, but Reddit has it too. If you scroll all the way down on their main page, you start seeing all of this type of stuff. Not necessarily social media, but like a contact us and the emails and the different contact information that you can use to get in touch with them. You can also link to a playlist or your Instagram on your website instead of linking to a single video or a single photo. If you link to your playlist or your Instagram as a whole, that way your website will automatically update whenever you post more videos in that playlist or when you add more photos and clips to your Instagram. So if you have YouTube and you're using it for different projects, different short films and stuff like that, you could just do a link to your playlist and put all of those short films that you make into that playlist, and they'll automatically start appearing on your website. So you don't have to constantly go to your website and update it by adding the newest short film into it. The other videos and websites in the syllabus are good to check out how they design their sites and get a better idea of how to create your own. You also want to make sure you have a contact us section. So anyone who wants to get in touch with you can, and they can either email you or message you through the site or call you if you're going to leave your number. But that way, if somebody's trying to get in contact with you because they like your project, maybe they want to work with you on your next one, or maybe they want to fund your next one, or maybe they just want to ask you some questions about something, like, there you go. That's how you find me. That's how you get in touch with our company or me as a filmmaker.
I would say having a commonly asked questions section is also really helpful, not only for them, but also for you. That way, if it's a question that everyone would have, or a very common question, they can go there and get it answered like that, instead of always having to contact you for the same questions over and over.
Yeah, so FAQ, frequently asked questions part, is always good to have as well. If there's a bunch of different people asking the same questions over and over again, you have an FAQ part of your site that answers those questions prematurely. So, if you look at our FAQs, if you have a question, check those, see if it is one of your questions that you already have. And then if it is, we already answered it. But if you have more questions, then you can contact us. So that's another good thing to do if it's for your company as a whole. And you also want to make sure, like I said, link, instead of just the social medias, also link other websites. Like if you are making a website for your production company, you might have another website for you as a filmmaker. You might have another website for each of your films. And if you do, definitely make sure to have that all combined in your main production company website. So it's like a central hub of all of your stuff and all of your things. The great thing about website builders is anyone can create a site now without needing to know coding like HTML and whatever the other ones are. I think it's like CC or something. You don't have to know all that because they just have it already pre-built in. You also want to remember to use or create your own logo for your site. And if it's a website for you as a filmmaker, your logo can be something just your name in whatever font matches you the best, or whatever style or design you're going for. Many people recommend for film websites, they be very visual, depending on what you want to do. Like if you're trying to be a director, cinematographer, production designer, something that's more visual, you definitely want your website to also showcase that visual stuff. And so less text, more visuals is usually the way to go, especially for cinematographers. This next stuff comes from filmdaily.tv. It's letter G in the syllabus. For a website dedicated to a film, you can have the trailer, the merch, the release date info, the synopsis. If there's any ratings or reviews, you can have that. Names and bios of the cast, crew, and companies working on it. Behind the scenes images and video. A blog about the film and the process of making it or how it was made. All the social media links, a wait list or an email list, and the technicals like equipment used and other information that will help sell tickets or downloads or sell your merch. Make sure the theme and feel of the site matches the film. Any key art, concept art, deleted scenes, interviews, articles about the film, etc., should also be placed or linked in your site. So if you have if you had an interview with somebody through YouTube and it's some YouTuber, you want to make sure that that is on your site, linked there. That way people can go to it from your site. Your site should always be your central hub of all this different stuff and information. That way, if anybody's looking specifically for you, your company, or your film, they can find all of the information that they want, that they need, by accessing your film and going from there to the other websites, instead of having to look through Facebook and then also look through YouTube and then also look through your site. They can just go to your site, click the links that lead them directly to YouTube or Facebook, which has your information in it. If it's available, DVD and Blu-ray purchase, links to where they can download or stream, and more can be on your site as well. A website is the best way to have all the information about your film, your company, or you as a creative all in one place, central hub for others to find. Like I said, no one wants to search the whole web to find separate pieces of info about a film or production company. Having it all on one website helps everyone stay up to date with you and your project so they can follow along.
And also just the public perception is that it's not very organized if you're on their official website and you can't find basic information.
Right. So that's why you want to link your social media, marketing, and any pitching you do. That way they can see all of the information about your film that they could access through other parts of the website. And through the internet. But it's all there for them to see. So they don't just come across it and be like, oh, I didn't know that. Because they didn't have it in their website. No, almost everything you have, especially as an independent film, you should try to just bring it all into your website and then link it out. And then you can share your website with everyone all across the board, everywhere. When you're talking about your film, check it out here, or check out the company's page here. And then that brings more traffic to your site and more chances of people buying your merch, your DVDs, your Blu-rays, or going to watch your film wherever it may be, compared to just giving the link to where the film can be watched. But yeah, does anybody have any questions or anything to add to that? Making a website for you as a filmmaker, for your film specifically, or for your production company if you plan on making multiple projects?
Yeah, go ahead. Well, I was just gonna say, it can be beneficial because you got dedicated pages for each thing. Like I think Priscilla mentioned putting your rates down. That's actually very, very beneficial because that's like one of the most common things that needs to be discussed. I don't know. It's just I see a lot of my I have a lot of buddies that do videography and stuff, and they have their own website too. Just things to be mindful of is like it's just if you're going outside of the realm of like YouTube and IMDb and stuff like that, not everybody has the same internet features. Like my internet is trash, so like you might send me a web page that doesn't work fully or takes forever to load or something like that. And so pretty much what I'm just trying to get at is don't rely on it 100% as your means of doing business. A lot of people like to think that it makes them look and it looks professional if you have the color scheme is right and everything's good, but you could also be messing yourself up a lot too. I know I've done business with this one lady in particular who only communicates through her website, but she doesn't respond to it, like because she has her own personal stuff. So it's kind of like I can't really communicate with her in a manner that that needs to be done that way. So it's good to have one, but at the same time it should be like there to like support and not really there to like be the full on thing.
I think it's I think like you said about IMDb, it should be there more for documenting everything about your stuff rather than a one place you should send everybody communicate through and do all your
It's
business
like
through kind
an
of thing.
online resume. If you look up somebody's name, hey, I wonder what projects they've done in a quick search because you're interested in having them in the project, it can be helpful. I mean, it's also like you recommend you get a resume from someone. I don't know. It's like just a quick look at what somebody has, some projects they've done. Be like, oh, this person says exactly what they mean. They said they worked on a bunch of stuff, and look, they didn't lie.
Yeah.
It's been checked, fact checked. So I think that's
Yeah.
kind of good. I mean, yeah, you can't rely on those things alone because there's reputation, there's this, and then also it's business, right? So anything in business, it's always up and down. There's no guarantee of, work. So that's why you work when there's lots of work, and you work less when there's less work because there's more competition because there's always the same guys, right, doing all the jobs. So that's something to keep in mind too, is like you're going to see the same people all the time. So yeah.
Yeah, but beyond that, it's also like if you're making a website for your film, it's a way to show the trailer, the key art, and any like articles about it all in one place. But like Brian said, which was actually a really good point, is websites like YouTube, eBay, Facebook, some of the massive websites, they have like very dedicated systems to making it kind of like they take on the brunt of the information so that the person loading the page isn't taking it all on themselves, because they're using these massive servers to hold all the data and you're just kind of accessing it. But for an individual website where you're making the web page for yourself and all of that, more likely you're going to have one that is going to kind of load the brunt of the loading and all the downloading and all the information that has to pop up on screen is going to go to whoever's accessing the site. And so if you have bad internet, or if your users that are looking at it have bad internet and you have hundreds of videos and thousands of pictures and whatever else on one web page alone, it is going to take forever to load, and it might not ever load for that person. So they might just give up and not even try to go to your website, which is another reason why it could be good to separate some of the information into separate pages, because that way it's not all on one page. Because when it's all on one page, it all has to load at the same time. Whereas if it's on a different page, then you click on a new page and it takes a little bit to load because it's accessing all the new information and putting it on your screen.
Yeah, and I would also say there's no need to have everything that you've done. You just keep the most recent and awesome things that you've done. As you do more stuff, you can pick through and be like, wow, this is better than this. So instead of having everything like 50 pages long, you just have like the last 20 things that you've done that are really cool. Or 15 or 5 or whatever, how many you want to do. Same thing for your resume. Once you've worked on tons of projects, you just keep the coolest projects at the forefront.
Yeah, I would say if you're doing it for yourself as a filmmaker, it's more of an online resume. If you're doing it for a film, it's definitely for promotion and marketing purposes to help keep everything in one place for your film. And if you're doing it for your production company, then it's to promote your company and show what projects you worked on and all of that. So it definitely depends which of those you're using it for, like what kind of site you're using it for. If you're making it for yourself, online resume. So it's not as like Sarah said, you can kind of just take the best that you've done and put it on there. For a production company, you might want to do that, or you might want to show all of the work you've done to show how you've progressed. It just depends on what you're trying to go for. And then if it's for your film itself, then of course you try to, I would say for a film specifically, you want to try to put as much of information that's out there on the web, in the internet, on that site, so that all the information about that film is on that website. But yeah, Brian, did you have anything else to add? Or Gabe, I think you were trying to say something earlier.
Yeah, mine is more of an idea if it doesn't exist already. Can you have like a streaming page?
Like a streaming server, like a
yeah, page, pretty much just streaming like your progress.
Well, that's
More
like you like your projects on your
yeah, the progress. Like usually like people want, like if people want to know the progress of your so it'll be like in live, what's the word? Yeah, live
streaming.
streaming.
Well, I think you would rather, if you're trying to do it for a website, you'd probably use either, what's the ones that do live streaming? YouTube, Twitch?
No, Twitch is for, I mean, you can live stream it, like your progress. Like,
No, I'm
oh,
saying
today we're
I
doing-
would suggest not using it through your own website because that's going to be a lot of data that it
Yeah,
has to
no.
handle.
I would say
So it would
YouTube
come into
channel.
that problem of like if people don't have enough internet, you're kind of front loading it onto them, so it takes a lot
The
more. of a
website
toll.
is a lot heavier, yeah. So in that case, that's what like social media pages are for.
I mean, Instagram does it too.
Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, those pages are where you would like post live updates and stuff like that. Live streams, projects like that.
So
Obviously,
you
if
can
you're
just
filming,
connect your Facebook.
huh?
So I can just connect my Facebook.
Yeah, you can do a Facebook
Yeah, you
Live
could
or
like
an
link it to
Instagram
the
Live.
Facebook to say here's where the live streams happen and whatever else, and that could be where they access it on your website.
Yeah, like you can post it. Like for example, the website is so that you can put basic information if they want to know more, if they want to buy merch, that kind of thing. The social media pages are where you link your website and you post updates all the time. Or sometimes you go live to answer questions, to show how progress is going, to talk to the cast and crew, that kind of thing.
Exactly. Perfect. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, cool.
That makes more sense. Yeah. Mhm.
All right. Does anybody else have anything to add or any questions before we move on to finance plan?
But I would say it is good to have a website and not just rely on social media. Because social media, it's more about the posts and the updates and this, all that. But it's important to have a place where people can go and see all the information about you, all the information about your projects, basic questions, dates, and merch, that kind of thing. So it's good to have that all in one place because it's very complicated for you to have it on a social media platform like Facebook or Instagram because new posts come up and those get lost, or a person will have to like search through to find that information. It's not in the forefront. What you can do is like on your social media page, you can be like new project, link to my website for more info, and then you have the link underneath on like your bio and stuff like that.
Also,
Okay.
there's a site where you link up all of your social media stuff and your website, everything. And you just pass that out and it has everything like your Instagram, your Facebook, your website, your YouTube, everything. It's like, that's all it is. It's just a link. So like, whenever it is you're networking with people and they, oh, what is your, no, just hand them the link to the card and link to the site and it has everything there that they need. So I have to find it. Let me see if I can find it for you guys.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So it's like a website that compiles all the stuff together so you can just go send that link and then they can have access to your website, your social medias, and whatever else that you want to link to it all in one
Yeah.
place really quickly and easily without having all the extra information. That way it's
Exactly.
just really quick and like it's just links. It's just basic information. So it's really quick to load. It doesn't take up somebody's whole internet data usage to access.
Yeah.
Ooh.
All right, so moving on from that, we're talking about finance. Oh, well, actually, I was going to also mention, so the exercise that we're doing to create a website or a web page for you or your film or your production company is going to come later on in the semester. We're going to do it after we watch one of our films, and we'll mention it later. It's going to be due way later in the semester, so if you want to get started on it now, you can, because it will come up later. But I'm not starting on it yet. I'm not going to really mention it until we get to the actual time where we're going to start mentioning it every week like we usually do.
Yeah, because when you have a project, that you're working on, you have to be very careful when you're promoting it on social media or websites and stuff like that, to give information that you can actually give, like that you actually have, when you actually have dates, when you actually know when you.
I was
this
just
will be
meaning
done.
not yet until we start the exercise.
Oh, no, okay. But I'm meaning it like in the sense of, you know what I mean? Like you create a website and you're giving like, oh yeah, we're creating this project. But if you don't have like clear information, then you're wasting money and time because you don't have any real information to give yet. So it's just there like, oh yeah, we're getting to it, and then you lose momentum too. You know what I mean?
Meaning like if you don't have information to share on a website, don't create it yet?
No, I'm saying like wait until you have the info, wait until you have like everything to put on the website before starting to pay for it, and then, oh yeah, I'll figure it out and put the info on there. Have it ready. Because every month is you paying for it.
Right. And
So
that's
have
why
it
I
ready.
would say, especially for the exercise, but also if you've never done it or you're not completely ready, you can always start with the free version if they have it, and create the site using the builder without actually posting the site yet. And then you are able to, well, it depends on which software you're using, but typically you can start creating the web page without actually posting it. And you can hold that. It kind of saves that for you so that if you ever decide to subscribe to their service, they have all that information that you pre-built ready to go. I know that the one I used, I think I had to get the domain, but then like any edits I'm doing on the pages or anything I'm doing to change the website, I can, and it's not going to show to anyone else until I actually post it. So if I was trying not to pay for the subscription yet, I could make the web page and make the website all how I want, and then start the subscription when I post it. But that's just certain. I'm not sure if all of them do that or not.
Have you heard of Wix, Dakota?
Yeah, I've heard of Wix. I haven't used it,
No.
but the only one I've used is InMotion
use-
Hosting, and they use WordPress.
Yeah,
for the
no,
building.
I recommend, because I've used Wix before, and it's the same thing. Like, you have a choice, whether when you want to publish it, but when it comes to designing, they have way more templates.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, they're pretty good. Wix.
Yeah, I've heard Wix. I've heard WordPress is good. It's just it's a little harder to get into because it doesn't have as much of the templates and stuff, but it has a lot more customization. And then a lot of people recommend Squarespace, but I've heard, I don't know, from what I've seen, it's kind of more expensive. So I would just definitely do the
And it's
research.
also, this is just what I've heard, I could be wrong, but some people, one of the cons is that they have a few templates, but they can look a little generic.
Yeah.
And so for someone that wants to create like a unique website, it might come off looking a little generic or amateur, it's depending. I've just heard that. I'm not saying it is or it isn't, but that is a con that people will give for Squarespace.
Right. So I definitely recommend researching it and stuff. When I was doing my website years ago, I was researching it to see the budget that I wanted, but also the customization options that I wanted. Because I wanted templates, but I wanted to be able to customize a lot of things that some sites wouldn't let you customize, like creating a different logo for each web page. Because I wanted to link 3 things in one. So it's just different things you might want that make you choose a different builder, different hosting service than another. So just be aware that they don't all do exactly the same stuff. Some stuff they'll do the same. Some are way simpler to use. Like Gabe was saying, Wix, I've heard it's pretty simple to use because they have so many templates and they're very professional, and it's pretty customizable too. But it might not have, a certain customization option that you might look for if you're making something unique. So you just have to be aware of those things when you're going in. Are you going in for more simple that's already pre-made, or you're trying to be customize everything and do very unique things with your site, make it look different? while still looking professional, then you might have to choose one over the other. Or you're just going for a free one. Some will be free, some will just have free trials. So you got to look into that as well.
I found that site I was talking about. It's called allmylinks.com. And you have to make another profile, of course, but it's got.
And that would be really smart. Like, let's say you have Instagram or Facebook.
You said all my links.
Yes, allmylinks.com.
Let's
and
say
then
you
you
have an
can-
Instagram or a Facebook page. Instead of link my website, link my this, link my other social media. It's like all my links in this link, in this one link type of thing.
Yeah, so when you're sending out emails to respond to things, you can just put in all my links, and it has your YouTube page, your Instagram, your Twitter, your websites, all that stuff in there. So you don't have to go looking for them and copy and paste and all that stuff is on there.
Yeah, and I think the only con I can see with that would be that then the people who have to click it have to click on 2 links instead of 1. So that's the only con I would see with it. It is really good to keep all of it in the same place, but I wouldn't say to use it over the
Demo
to use
reel.
it always instead of everything, because sometimes if someone's looking for YouTube, they might not click all my links to go to.
No, I
to
would say
YouTube.
have 2. That's what I would recommend. I would say have your main page and then further links, social media, blah, blah, blah.
No, I know. I'm just saying, like, I wouldn't use one always over the other. I'd kind of use both, like you're saying.
Yeah, that's how I would do it.
Just because using all my links, people might not know what it is, and so they might not click it to go to the YouTube after that. But it is really cool to know, and thanks for sharing that, because that is pretty sweet.
But
Especially because it has the website and the social media and whatever else you have that you can combine all into one place.
Yeah, but the thing is about it too is that, like, when you put it in your email, it's set up, it looks like a website. So when you click on it, like, you automatically think it's not like YouTube or Facebook that has some kind of other setup, which like, oh, I don't want to go there, or Vimeo is another one. So it kind of looks like a website in the layout and stuff and the way it looks.
I'm gonna go to all my links.
Mm-hmm.
Is it .com?
Yep,
Yeah.
that's it. And then you create a profile and then you submit. I'm not necessarily sure how this works as far as like how it's all linked up to it. Like if you link up and then you're able to like monitor your stuff. I mean, that would be pretty dope too. Like if I can just go to this site and then I never have to log into Facebook again, because like it'll tell me when I get notifications and stuff. That'd be pretty dope. I'm not necessarily sure, but yeah, I don't know. It seems pretty beneficial. It seems pretty beneficial especially because you got some people that have Instagram only and don't have Facebook. I only have Facebook. I don't have Instagram. You have YouTube and then all that good stuff. But like you were saying, like when you're responding to things and people are asking for a demo reel, you want to send them a direct link to the demo reel. Person might not know what all this stuff is, but for like to say this girl that I got this from, she's the producer of whatever movie it is that we were working on, and she always had it at the bottom of her thing, so like as her ending for her little credit block at the end of her emails and stuff like that. So it's cool to kind of have that there. I thought it was her website for the longest time, and I clicked on it and I was like, oh, this is not. I said, oh, this is everything else, and her website. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it's good. You could have it like in your little credit, to, your footer at the end of your emails, and then also include within the email like your website on top ahead of that. But it's also like a good secondary resource, like Priscilla was mentioning. Just in case somebody's like, oh, your website doesn't work, well, they can go on all my links and maybe try something else. You know what I mean? So
yeah, definitely. So yeah, I definitely think that's a good idea to use. And like you said, and like Priscilla was saying, don't use it for everything, especially if people are asking for specific stuff. Can I see your work? Or can I see a reel that you've done? Link them directly to it. So I'd be like, yeah, go to all my links. It's there on my, or hey, what's your website? go through all my links, and then my website's the first one. It's better to
Yeah.
just send them the direct link to the website. But if
Yeah.
nobody's asking for the certain thing, you can use it in, like you said, emails, like in your signature in your email. And just like, if you're doing Twitter, you can do a quick tweet talking about it. If whatever you're talking about for your work or your film or whatever it is, you can be like, you can check out everything here.
Yeah.
That is a good thing. Good resource to utilize. But yeah, V, you were talking about Wix. This is Wix right here. All right, moving on from that, we're talking about film finance plans, specifically pitching them. Well, we'll talk about both pitching and just like what it is. Your film finance plan is how you plan to get financing for your project and where that money is going to be coming from. Most films aren't financed through investors alone and get funding from multiple sources. We learned that when we were talking about financing. That was either last semester or the semester before. But there's a lot of different places you should get funding from if you're trying to do a big budget movie. Depending on how much money you're trying to get, you're going to have multiple sources. And that's what this finance plan is. It's where is this money coming from? What's the percentages and the amounts that are going to come from each of these avenues? You may want to get 40% of your funding through investors. And then you narrow that down to maybe 2 investors fund 10% of the budget, and 1 investor is the main investor and they fund 20% of the budget. While you get the rest of your budget from grants, taxes, and other places. This stuff comes from filmmaking stuff. Letter C in the syllabus, it's the video, the 3-step formula for pitching your film project to investors. When pitching your finance plan to investors, first, be sure to research your investors. Make sure that they are a good fit. Some are only going to invest in certain genres, certain budget levels, or with certain level of experienced crew, or with only named cast projects or union projects only. So there's a lot of those types of investors or investment companies that will only work with certain things. So be sure you do your research first. That's all across the board. Every single thing we learn is research. So definitely always do that for every single thing. If you get a business that has no online presence, try asking people that have done business with them to see if you can find anything out about them. Be prepared, always be prepared when you're trying to pitch anything. As soon as you get labeled in their head as an amateur, it's hard to get out of that. And it's hard to get out of that. Don't go to investors with only the finance plan. They may ask for a number of other things, so make sure you're prepared. They might ask for the script. Have a finished script. Bring it along with you just in case they ask. They might not have asked for that in the meeting proposal, but they might ask for it when you're there. They might like the idea and want more information on it. So having it there with you is always a good thing. Never bring a first draft, but a finalized script, a production schedule, preliminary budget, revenue projections, log line, synopsis, pitch deck, and all of the rest of the tools and documents about your film. You want it ready so that if they ask you for it, you have it ready for them and you don't have to go, oh, yeah, I'll email that to you later. Oh, here you go. And I'll also email that to you later. The guy gave an analogy of if you had a friend who wanted you to watch their film and you did, but it was a 4-hour long and the story made no sense. The sound wasn't that great. People were looking at the camera and there were other issues with it, like breaking the 180-degree rule and stuff like that. And then that friend 3 months later wants you to come see their new film. You would give every excuse not to go. You wouldn't want to go see their new film. You would already brand them as they don't know what they're doing. Their films suck. And you wouldn't want to go see their new film, even if they improved 100-fold. You wouldn't know that because the last film you saw of theirs sucked. So if you're investing You're trying to pitch to somebody, to investors, I mean, and you come off as an amateur. The next time you try to come back to them, they're already going to have that notion of you being an amateur in their head, because last time you came, you didn't have what they needed, or you didn't have that, you weren't prepared. So always be prepared anytime you're trying to go pitch your movie to any investors, financiers, or distributors, sales agents, and producer reps. Never want to appear as new or amateur. So be confident, have high energy, be excited about your project while pitching. Even if it's the more boring stuff like budgets and financing, still want to be excited about it and be high energy. You also want to practice your pitch. Practice in front of the mirror, practice with people, because they might point something out or ask something that throws you off your guard and throws you for a loop and makes you draw a blank and something you never even thought of. And then you're like, oh, and why does he do this? Why doesn't he just go that way? And you want to have an answer for that when you're on the actual pitch. So practicing with people is a good way to get those answers figured out when you don't really know them off the top of your head yet. This next stuff comes from Skatina and Rosner Films industry page. So YouTube channel, it's letter G in the syllabus. How to prep and package a film before pitching investors above micro budgets. For larger budget productions, or ones that you believe needs a higher budget, you might want to consider going to a private equity investor, which is an individual, first, getting funding for part of your budget from them, using that to make offers or confirm offers with named actors and or named crew, and then going to larger financial companies to get the rest financed, as then you'll have named actors or named crew attached to your film. So you're more likely to get the bigger guys, the bigger companies to agree to fund the rest because people are already attached to it. They were saying the equity guys deals are typically that they get a small percentage of the income for the life of the film after they make their money and a certain percentage back. So they could be, their deal could be, you give us $100,000 and we give you $120,000. So you get 120% back before we make any money as the filmmaker, as the producer anyway. And then after that, you get this 3%, and then it goes down to 2%, and then it goes down to 1%, and then it goes down to 0.5% with each level of money. So if we make $500 million, you get 0.001% of that because we're making so much money and it's keep going up. But if we only make $5 million, you get 3% of that. Whatever it is, that's usually how their deals work. So they have a deal that gets a percentage of the money for the life of the film, which is a small percentage after they make their money back, and then whatever percentage you made a deal with them for like an extra 20% on top of your money that you already gave us, that kind of thing. The larger companies, the larger investment firms and stuff like that, typically they have a one and done deal where they get their money and then their percentage on top of it to a certain percentage, and then they're done. They don't want to have to deal with that film for the life of it because it's a lot of things to look into, a lot of work and a lot of legal stuff. So they just don't care as much. So they might go, oh, we'll just take 30% on top of whatever we gave, and then you can have whatever's after that. So the equity investors get paid for the life of the film. However, the large company is usually always going to be the one to get paid first before it reaches the individual investor. So if you have two investors and a large company that invested in you, that company gets their money back and their percentage before the investors make their money back and then their percentage. So that's something you want to keep in mind. And it's always good to know and convey those details, especially to a newer investor in film, because they might not know that. So they might not know how much risk they're taking on. And you want to make sure that you convey that to them so they know. You know, it might be a while until you get your money back. Because
Oh yeah, because if you're getting a newcomer that's a new investor, they don't know how things work. They are going to be on your case, like, hey, how's this, how's that, you know? And also it's an uncomfortable situation for both of you. So if you have someone that's like, hey, I want to invest in your film, hey, I want to see if I can help you, make it very clear what that would entail. Don't think, oh, you know, this is great, we'll figure it out. You need to make it very clear to the investor, this is what you're getting yourself into. These are the risks. This is how long it might take for us to get a profit if we go. So just make that very clear, because trust me, it's not worth the headache.
yeah, we were talking about this a lot when we were talking about financing a film and everything, and the waterfall. So, you know, you also want to make sure you tell them about that.
And also they can't blame you later, because you warned them what they were getting themselves into. So, you know, like, hey, we discussed it, you know, I told you how it works.
An investor who's been investing in film for a while will know this information most likely.
Yeah.
But ones who are new, or your rich uncle, you know, they don't know. So you definitely want to make sure they know what risk it is. But he also says around around $10 million, you can usually stay pretty independent. But once it starts going above that, especially above $15 million budgets, that's where you start getting a lot more of that studio involvement, where they start doing a lot of creative, you know, changing a lot of the creative choices, or making you hire these people because of this and that. You know, because it starts getting into the really large budget areas. When pitching to investors, they'll want to know where else your funding is coming from, so they know how much risk they're taking on by giving you partial funding. And that's what this film financing plan is for. So you can say, you know, we are going to ABC company to get the 30% of our funding. And you as an individual investor, we want you to pay 10% of the funding. And that way they know, okay, where's the other 60% coming from, first of all, but also, you know, they're going to get 30% of their, whatever the budget is, they're getting all of that back and then some before I even get a dollar back. So I'm taking on a big risk by doing that, because they have such a large chunk of the budget. And, you know, and that's, you know, that's why a lot of film investors in general, are going to want something like this, the film financing plan, so they know where else are you getting money from? You know, how much risk am I taking on? How likely is it that I'm going to get my money back? And how likely is it that this thing's going to get me a profit even? Having your finance plan easy to understand and realistic may get you the financing that you need. Scalina and Rosner Films also said if your budget is $50,000 to $250,000, then you might be able to get full funding from private investors alone. But once you start going above like the $250,000 range, that's usually when you're needing to find multiple finance avenues. He also said that the lower micro budget films, which are $250,000 or less, are harder to sell. You know, and distributors, they don't see them as lucrative, because they're usually not. So they're harder to get investors interested in, because they don't sell as well. But yeah, so that's just something to keep in mind, depending on what kind of film budget you're trying to go for. Once you start getting above $250,000, you want to try to find a lot of multiple avenues. Usually, I mean, I would recommend trying to find multiple avenues regardless, because you might have the tax credit stuff. Always look into that, because part of your funding can come from that, depending on your budget, how much you're putting in, and how much that tax incentive, whatever the budget has to be. If you meet those requirements, that's already cash that you're going to have coming back. And then how much you want to get from production financing, or from banks and stuff like that, or people or companies that invest specifically in films, compared to regular well, not regular, but individual film investors alone. And maybe a pre-sale if you're lucky enough to pre-sale it, to get a pre-sale agreement from a distributor. Then that could be where part of your financing also comes. So yeah. Does anybody have any questions or comments on finance plans or pitching them to investors? Just like with anything with numbers, you have to be realistic with it. People are going to realize if you're trying to get $18 million funding from 5 individual investors that it's most likely not going to happen. So they're not going to be willing to invest in it, compared to if you have a huge layout of different avenues that you're going to approach to try to get a certain percentage of your budget from different places, and how you plan to get those people to agree. And that would be, we're going to try to attach names to it, and then we're going to get 20% of our budget from here, and then we're going to get 30% from there, and 10% from this and that, until it adds up to 100% of the budget that you need. All right, guys, that was it for tonight. Monday, we are going to be talking about script analysis, external and internal action and dialogue, social media. We're going to talk more about social media and how you can utilize it to market your film, promote yourself as a filmmaker and stuff like that. And kind of like what some of the different ones are like what kind of photos they, or what kind of audiences a lot of them have, what the users are mostly, what EPKs are, electronic press kits, how to make one, and then elevator versus standard pitches. I hope you all have a good weekend, and hope to see you all Monday.
Good night, everyone.
Right. Great plan.
Goodbye.
That was pretty good.